the intermunicipal development plan. Can we get a motion on this one?
Okay. Come out with both.
Okay.
The council gives second reading to bylaw 10-219, or 2019, sorry, 2019, and approve revisions this 8th day of October 2019 to meet the requirements presented in the Municipal Government Act sections 631-631-1 and 636-638.1.
So Brian, what are the revisions that are in here?
The only revision was the boundary, IDP boundary.
So this was, it's boundary number option 3?
No,
No, it's this one.
You
Yeah.
get more east-west, you took away the north-south bit.
Yeah, just that one piece coming down. Yeah. And that was the one that we had approved before. So
That's the one that we approved at the IDP meeting at Big Lakes County. That's the boundary line.
Yeah, we did like it before. You're right. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So which one is he gonna end up doing?
Yeah.
The right one?
The map one,
The left,
the right.
The right one.
Map one.
number 1.
Not option
Page
3, but map 1.
53.
Okay, good. Next.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other discussion on that one then? Oh, Councillor Gilroy.
So in the original one, we had the dotted line in option 3, and that was what they were suggesting. Then they had the pink line, which was more or less, they would let us know if there was any sort of development in it. Am I correct on that?
Going to the south.
Well, you had it up top and at the west and that, in the original option 3. So we're solidifying and getting the extra on the north side and the east side, but we're giving up the south. Is that correct? Okay. So is there any other, since we had conditional boundaries on the original, are there any extra conditional boundaries? Not, or is this a hard and fast?
That's it.
Okay. So anything outside of that, they don't have to tell us anything about, right? Okay.
Just want to clarify.
As courtesy, they do though. Their development officer will contact the town and she will let us know, and I guess for subdivisions and that they have to approve or get the opinion of the neighboring municipality, so. Nothing that they haven't been doing all along. So.
Okay. No other discussions on this one? All those in favor? It's carried.
Cardinal White, Banana Green Pie.
Okay, Councillor Rose.
That council give third reading to bylaw 10-219 and approve revisions this 8th day of October 2019 to meet the requirement presented by the Municipal Government Act section 631-631-1, 636-638-1.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Moving on to reserve fund policy. Is there a motion on this one? Councillor Rose?
The council approved policy 12-219 reserve fund policy.
Okay. I have questions on this, or is there anything you want to bring up about this first? Or
Brought up to my treasurer at the bylaw policy review committee.
okay, my question is, what will this do to our budget if we follow this policy? What are the financial implications?
We have actually been following this policy basically in great detail already because we weren't aware that the 2016 policy was only a draft and had not been passed. So I've already been using it as my guideline. I was not using the one that was actually in place because I guess the 2016 one was never passed. It was before my time, but it had gone to council, and when I saw it, I assumed that was the policy, and that's the one I've been following. So it will not change anything that we are doing right now, except for the very last one, which is a new one, and that's the subdivision and land development reserve, which was not one of the ones in the 2016.
Oh, I'm looking at the other one, yeah.
It's on page 62.
Yeah. So there's no financial implications, which is good. But are we meeting this? Because one of the things that like when we did our last budget, it was, well, that reserve money, we have money, and that we just put aside what we can at the end. We don't set aside X amount for each of these reserves. Like it's not identified and put in there.
It is identified in the budget as a contribution to capital, and so that's where it's going to in the reserve. We have changed the amount, and I don't think the new amounts are the same as the policy. So I don't know if the policy, if you guys want to take the percentages out, if you want to make sure that the policy and the budget match, which should, but which way you guys want to go, if you want the budget to match the policy or for the policy to match the budget.
Well, that's what I guess I'm getting at is
It's
if
up to
we follow
council.
this policy, what are the implications on our budget? We need to know that before approving the policy, right? That's why I'm trying to sort of ask that question. But you're saying we've been following this.
In general, not in detail, but in general, because
I know there was, when we talked about it,
Yes.
there was a lot of, we weren't able to meet some of what we were hoping
correct,
to.
but we did last year and we did budget for it this year. So, because we increased the amount for both water, wastewater, sewer, and gas. We did increase the amounts for those ones. So, but I can definitely, if you want to bring it back to the next meeting, then I can definitely change the budget accordingly or change the policy according to what's in the budget. Whichever way council gives me direction, I'll do whichever one you want.
Just my thoughts is maybe if we brought this back to the next meeting and said, okay, this is what we're going to be putting in, what percentages, and see how it compares to this.
Because right now, the way it's written, it says 60% at the least, so that I'm assuming that that's the minimum. So anything that's in the budget that's above and beyond that isn't an issue.
Right.
So it's only if the minimum is not met.
Yeah, are we hitting the 60?
Okay, I can double check on that for you, no problem.
Okay. Councillor Stenhouse?
I would like to talk about the return to service bursary fund. So it states here that this is a medical bursary fund. Now, is this the same bursary that we've been giving out to our applicants that we just approved? Because this is dedicated as a medical bursary fund.
We actually asked for that to be changed, the name, and it's never really happened. But there was there was an NADC bursary fund created a number of years ago that was dedicated to just medical, because they were going to do matching money with NADC, and that just never really happened. And then we presented an alternative, which was a return service bursary that wasn't attached to the general, that wasn't attached to the medical field, that was general. And so it was just that the line item, I think, in the budget said NADC medical bursary, and it keeps on becoming a concern because it comes back to
I've changed the name in a lot of the documents. I've changed the name in the bank stuff, and I must have missed
missed it here?
I must have missed it in one of the places again,
Okay.
because it's always, like you say, it's coming up, but the account was named that originally, and even though the intent isn't the same and it has been changed as you suggested, I may not have changed all the terminology everywhere.
Okay, so we could probably just make that change.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'd want it like this return to service bursary fund. It should be our the High Prairie Education Fund, right? Or the High Prairie Bursary Fund, because then it's.
Why don't you want it to say return service?
Well, I guess it's just the name of it, but return of service bursary doesn't really say what it's for. It's just a return of service. You gotta do something.
Oh, I
back.
see, it doesn't say education.
Yeah, it doesn't say education. I'd rather see it as the High Prairie Education Bursary Fund. Councillor Gilroy.
I would rather not have the that last sentence in the return to service bursary fund taken out, that this reserve should only give out the same amount as to what is contributed every year. Remember when we were discussing bursaries, we decided, or we said it doesn't matter how many people apply, we can give them a certain amount, and it was only fair that way. And there were some of us of the opinion that though we didn't exactly at that time know how much was in it, that we don't want to get in the habit, or future councils get in the habit of exceeding the amount that is put in every year. And so I would like to, if you want to adjust it a little bit to say that we then have to add to it or something like that, but I don't want to take off the idea that we limit the amount of money that we're going to give a year over time.
This particular policy for the reserve fund policy was done up in draft form months ago. Since then, council has seen the return to service policy number 4-2016, and so that has changed, and council has made a policy, has dictated now that 5,000 will go into the account every year, and so that has been represented in the budget. But I will make sure that the return to service policy itself matches up with the reserve fund policy.
I mean, even if we put 10,000 in a year, that last line that I'm asking to keep in there says we don't give up more than 10,000. If we put in 5,000, whatever we put in, I think that should be the limit of what we actually give out, so that there's always some money there so that we can continue this perpetually, as opposed to running out and then we suddenly have to grab money out of the budget again and put it in there. I'd rather be able to focus on. So if you want to come up with better wording than me, I would appreciate it. But I just want to make sure that there's always some money there without having to suddenly grab extra money out of the budget and put it in there.
So what's in the fund now?
As of the beginning of the year, and as of the payments we just paid out this pay run, we paid out 5,000. I haven't put in the 5,000 for this year yet, because I usually do that in December. So I'd say it's pretty well close again, still to the 20,000 by the end of the year.
So what's the value of having, or I mean, there's always value in money, but why have money there that's basically sitting there doing nothing? If we're saying we're going to have $20,000 sitting there, we're going to put $5,000 in a year, and we're going to take $5,000 out. What's the rest of the 20 sitting there for?
I would say that right now, you would probably should be speaking to the Royal Canadian Legion, the Peavine Métis Settlement, the High Prairie Elks Lodge, and finding out what they want done with the contributions they have made in the past, if that's still something that was the original kitty, or if that was already distributed out, or how you want to deal with that, because is some of that money that's sitting in there still a percentage owned by them, because they were the original participants? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, they made a donation to a bursary fund, right?
Yep. So, like I said, the money was put in by all partners, and money was spent, but which portion would still technically still be theirs?
So in order to honor sort of the intent of their donation, I mean, anybody that would be going academically into some sort of medical field, because that's the NADC medical bursary, like we would be able to use it for that. So we could, without talking to people that gave us money in 2003,
Yes.
which it's very likely we're not going to find those same people anyway, right?
Yes.
Which could just make it very convoluted. I mean, we can minimally at least attach it to anybody who applies that.
I'm just saying that I'm not sure if that money has been spent or not, or how these partnerships, is that what that 20,000 that's sitting there, is that still part
But
of
you don't
that?
even know if that's their money.
I'd have to check
or if
into
that's
it.
our
I'd have
money.
to check into it, yeah.
Yeah.
We give
But-
up their portion.
Yeah, we already
That's
gave it out.
3 years.
Well, you look at it from 2003, and they put in.
Looks like we're creating
But,
negative.
yeah, we're not going back to
Did we
that
add
for that
3,000
smaller
to the,
amount.
did we add an extra 3,000 to the account from the original budget? I thought originally we only budgeted 2,000 this year, and then because we paid out 5, you added 3 more, is that correct?
She's gonna add 5, sounds like.
No, but I
You
thought
guys
the
paid
original
out,
budget.
you guys paid out 5
Right,
this
but
year.
what was the original budget before we even deliberated? Wasn't it 2?
Yes.
Okay, so why are we adding 3 more if we have $20,000? I'm thinking if you guys are thinking spend it, then we shouldn't be adding 3,000 to it. We should take part of that 20,000 and make it down to 17, and we still are good. As opposed to just to keep where it is, we're taking an extra 3,000 out of our revenue to bump it up. Because
That's the smartest thing you said today.
thank you, Arlen. You can have another burger. But seriously, I think we should just keep it at the 2, and then we cut out some of the 20 then, and we're still up by 17, if that's what, as opposed to increasing our expenses.
We have to get these figures straight, because from what I recall from our bylaw, that was not the balance that we were given.
Our treasurer just gave us a balance. So it's whatever sheet says we have in there.
After it was discussed at the last meeting, I sent council a copy of how much was in that.
See, a lot of money has also been accumulated with interest over the years. There's been a lot of interest added to that account. And so that has not been money that was put in. It was just money that we got interest on the money, and interest rates have fluctuated since 2003, and some years we got a lot better. So there's quite a few thousands in there over the years that are just interest.
So I'm saying just leave it at the 2, not at the 5, and we take the extra 3 out of the balance we have then. And that way we're not increasing our expenses any.
Well, we could probably leave that up to, I mean, it's not a bad point, but it doesn't reflect how we're voting on this policy, right? So we could probably move on from, because that amount doesn't have to be part of that decision right now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's certainly valid why we should figure out what we're doing with the $20,000 if we keep on adding and taking out the exact same amount. Because, all we're going to do is make interest on it, right?
Looking at changing a little bit, but still on the policy, is that rate stabilization reserve. You want it to up it to a 150? Because it was at 100,000?
Yes, and that was from way back in 2000 with the cost of living, with the extra expenses people have, the change in rates and everything else. I don't think that the 100,000 is a very large amount. I think 150 would be more reasonable.
When was the last time we drew from that rate stabilization?
It was spent a long time ago. There hasn't been more money put in.
We don't have a rate stabilization.
At the present
fund
time, I
at all.
don't believe so.
So you're suggesting we put another 150 just out of, instead of building it up? Just
Well,
on
it depends on what their financial picture is going to be at the end of this year. That's always what, the way it used to work before we were allowed to have budgets that were in a deficit or surplus position, whatever money was left over, if there was money left over at the end of the year, it had to go back to council. Council had to make a decision where that money was going to go. And they decided where the extra went to. And it had to be spent so that the bottom line was 0 at the end of the year. That was mandatory. So now that they don't have that rule in place by the province anymore, you can have a deficit, you can have a surplus. We have another account now that's unrestricted surplus at like most companies, it just goes into that account. So what council has done in the last number of years is you have all these transfers to capital and all these reserves and all those transfers that happen at the end of every year. If there's money left over after that, I have not allocated it to any particular department, any particular reserve or anything else. It just goes into that extra reserve, unrestricted reserve.
So that's where council should decide where it should go.
Correct. And so now, right now, you guys could just take money out of that unrestricted reserve and put it into the restricted reserve stabilization fund. It's not going to affect your budget whatsoever because the money's already there. It's just taking it from one account to another.
Okay, so that sort of goes back to if we're taking it out of there, how do we meet our other budget things? What I, sorry, I'm not explaining that well, I can see. We take 150,000 out for this that we haven't been putting into, so that's another expense that we need to realize how that's going to impact our budget. Right?
No, it's not an expense. That's where the problem is. It's already in a savings account.
Yes.
You're taking it from one savings account to a different savings account. It's not going to hit an expense whatsoever.
But it's not going to one of these other reserves that it might have went to otherwise.
It would not go to one of those other reserves because right now we've got, I think, about $800 and some thousand in that unrestricted reserve.
Okay, I sort of see what you're getting at now, but
It's a savings account already in place. It's just that now you're putting it to a special cause. Like, for example, myself, I've got 5 savings accounts, one from each of my 4 grandchildren and one of my general savings. And every once in a while, I'll take money from my general savings and put it into one of the grandkids' account.
Whatever you like better.
No, whenever their birthday comes up.
Can I ask a question?
yep.
So Terry, this is a draft, the 2016 draft bylaw that you've been working by, thinking that it was actually the bylaw.
Correct.
So what is actually the bylaw, and how
The
much?
2001 that the bylaw committee looked at, which I don't see in here. I think it came to council once before, but it was 2000 and it was really, really outdated. And most of it was not in place because Herb had basically thrown most of that out the window when he had combined all the reserves into one account.
So how much are we not following policy?
In this case, a lot. Herb started by putting the new policy, which I thought had passed, and then I've just fine-tuned what he already did. And so I was following that as best as I could, thinking that was the policy, and it made sense, it was realistic. The one from 2000 is old, like really old.
Okay.
So I had and this is just about the sort of the formatting of the policy, which is there, just by the size of the headers, we have number 1, obligatory reserve funds, aka deferred revenue, discretionary reserves, and then we had operating reserves and then restricted capital reserves. So there's sort of 4 categories. Is that the gist of it?
Kind of.
But so what would be, like, under operating reserves, there's 3 listed. Under restricted capital reserves, we've got 10 listed, but we don't have any under the other ones of obligatory reserves or discretionary reserves.
Okay, the obligatory reserves is kind of a weird name for it because that one is the one that we don't have much choice on. It's the one that's actually put aside from the grants that we get. It's also called deferred revenue. That's why I put it in there in my draft because it wasn't explained in the previous draft. So basically it's the grant money we get, for example, from MSI. We get a certain amount every year. But if we don't have enough projects that year to spend it all, or if it's a project that's going to take 2 years for us to get enough money to do that project, we get to carry the money over. But we can't spend it. It's not ours. It's not ours until we do the project. So it's called deferred revenues. It's a reserve that we put the money into until such time as we do the project and the money becomes ours. Okay, so that one, that's why there's no name to it. It depends on the project, and it's usually roads or water treatment plant or whatever else. So that's why there's no department attached to it. The next one, the discretionary reserves, is the one I was just telling you about. It's like a general savings account. So it's where our surpluses are going at the end of every year, and it's just sits there until council decides they want to do something specific with it. So far, council has made 2 or 3 decisions this past year of where to put some of that money. There was supposed to be $125,000, I believe, for the capital for the airport. There was supposed to be something for broadband originally, but that has come out again now, but there's been 2 or 3 motions that council has made, and that's where the money's coming from, is from that general reserve, that general savings account. And that's been accumulated over the last how many years type of thing.
So this should be AKA unrestricted.
Correct.
We probably should put a title on it. And then if that's the case, I'm looking at the font size and the bolding for those 2 categories, and then you flip the page, and then operating reserves is a much smaller one. It doesn't look like it's the same category of funds. It's hard to, I think it should be the same. Yeah, it should be the same, or maybe you put, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then put subheadings underneath that or something, just so it's easier to understand that there's 4 categories.
Okay.
Yeah. And just the last item, because this is going to come back, but the subdivision and land development reserve.
That was the new one that I put in there that was not in the previous draft. Council has brought it up during their strategic planning a number of times that they want to do something with the West End, with that industrial park, but there's no funding for that. There's no money put aside for that. So I felt that if we put it as a reserve, then we could start some money a little bit every year and accumulate until you guys can actually do something with that subdivision. I didn't put an amount in there because I had no idea what council wanted to put as an amount, whether they wanted to put, 500,000 or 50,000 or 5,000. That might even fluctuate year to year. That's totally up to council. But I felt that there should be a reserve started for that, because otherwise you're never going to have the money needed to develop that any further. Because I believe, Brian, correct me if the other Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Vern had said it was going to be about $3 million or something. Yeah. So we should start. My opinion is we should start a reserve for it.
Yeah. No, my comment was going to be, I agree with you. I think it's a good reserve, but I think in the wording, the purpose of this reserve is to purchase or develop land within the municipality. That's great. But in 2019, the focus is the West Industrial in conjunction with strategic plans. I don't know if we need that in there because that's very specific for a given year. And in 2 years from now, that could be totally different. We've purchased that other land by the tennis court. Maybe our priority is to develop the lands there. But I like the last sentence. You could say the annual amount to be determined by council in budget deliberations guided by the strategic plan. Because then we can decide if we want to put in some and just slowly build it up so that in 5 years we have the capital or whatever.
Okay, so take out the second sentence and add that phrase to the third sentence. Okay, got it.
Okay, any other comments on this one? So we have a motion to approve it, but we want to see some changes and bring it back at the end of the day, so.
No, there's no second.
It's the one only.
Policy.
One
Policy only.
Yeah.
Either pass it or
You want the
you.
motion rescinded? And just-
We can defeat it and make another one, yeah. So, all of those in favor? Opposed? That motion's defeated, and it'll come back then, right? Okay. Going to policy 45, 2019, accounts receivable and utility write-off. Get a motion on this one. Councillor Courtley?
The council approved policy 45-2019, accounts receivable and utility write-off.
So the only thing that was done to this one is to add the word utility, because the policy was already in place for accounts receivable, but for some strange reason we didn't have one for utilities. So we're just adding it to also apply to utilities. That's the only change to this one.
Okay. Councillor Gilroy?
Oh, made a mistake.
My only comment on this one was that we say in that first sentences, or interest charges may be written off when all collection proceedings have been exhausted. Do we have a process of that we follow for debt collection?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, is that written out anywhere?
I'm not sure if it's written anywhere specifically. It might be in our financial control or bad debt policy. I'd have to double check. But the policy that I've followed basically has been according to the MGA, which supersedes any policies or bylaws anyways. And we try every way we can to collect it. If it's applicable to the land, like for accounts receivable, it goes against their taxes. And then we get it that way. That's why we're not going to get very many write-offs anymore compared to what they had in the past, because what you guys approved there this spring was from back in 2013 to 2015 mostly. There wasn't too many of the new ones. That's our first step. If it's not applicable to the land, then we try other methods. We try to get it through phone calls. We try to get it through not allowing them to charge or to have another account with us unless they pay off the old one. Sometimes they try to open up a new account 2-3 years later, and we get a damage deposit and stuff, and we get them to pay the old stuff before they're allowed to hook up. So there's various methods we use. There was a collection agency that had been used in the past. They were charging, of course, a fairly high rate for smaller amounts. But the people that were sending it from here to the collection agency weren't doing the preliminary work first. They were not. There's a lot of ways you can try to collect it first. And with the staff I have right now, and with my experience in collections, we usually get the people one way or another.
It sounds like you've got a good policy and that you're following it, but I guess my concern is that it should be written down so that it's identified and we can follow it. And like you said, maybe it's referring to section so-and-so of the MGA, but I think that should be in our policy where it says, that, collections will be, you'll follow the collection procedure as identified in this section of the MGA, or you said it might be in another policy somewhere, but we should identify that in here so people know that there is a process to follow for debt collection. Just to
Okay,
spell it out.
the thing is that something like that is a procedure, it's not a policy. And I have procedure manuals. Each of my staff has a manual, like a thick manual of what their job is. And that's more under the procedures. It's not part of the policy.
But it should be referred to so somebody can find it then.
That's for standard procedures, maybe?
Yeah, and
Okay.
refer to a procedure or whatever,
Okay.
just so somebody can find it.
Procedures numbered, like can you actually?
No, they're not numbered.
But you'd have a debt collection procedure then?
Yep. I'll double check into it.
That would be my only suggestion, is referencing what our procedure is for debt collection, so the next person reading this would know where to go to find out. Because you talk about when all of the collection proceedings have been exhausted. Like, what are those processes? What are those steps? But otherwise, it looks good. Under 500, you write it off. Over, then it gets council's approval.
That was something.
I had never seen before, because usually it always needs council's approval for all debts to be written off, and only for the interest portion or service charges are administration allowed to make that call themselves. And so I was surprised when I saw that. But it is up to council if they do want delegated to administration for small amounts. They don't have to worry about it. It is their option to do that. So, but I have not seen that before, so that one kind of surprised me.
But this is what you're recommending?
Well, that's what was there before, and I have no problems leaving it that way.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys have? I don't know.
I'm sure administration can make that decision.
Yeah,
on small
under
amounts.
$500 is small, right? Like it's,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, then, do we pass this with the verbal changes, or do we wait and have her make the other
Or you change it and bring it back. Finished.
Yeah, we'll bring them both back in if that, okay. So, all those in favor? Opposed? What are you two guys over there
You two
talking?
will be
Just-
separated if you stop talking now. They've done it
Got too
before.
much candy.
They've done it before. They've separated people.
Okay, what we're just basically defeated that motion, except we didn't get a vote from you. Well, you voted in favor and then pulled your hand down quick, but you still got,
Still in favor, 3 against, 2 is defeated.
yeah. Just right. So that one's defeated, it'll come back to the next meeting with the one change. CAO's vacation, okay, go ahead, Councillor Stenhouse.
That council approved the CAO's requested vacation days of November 7th to November 22nd, 2019.
Was that for information?
Yeah.
No, but it says 2018 there.
You've already had it then.
All right, any discussion on it?
Are you gonna bring back a barbecue?
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. RMA convention invitation. Councillor Rose.
That council send a member of council to the Rural Municipality of Alberta Convention being held November 12th to 15th as a guest of Big Lakes County. And I guess that would just be who can go based on
Actually, do we have to make a motion as well for our CAO to go?
RCO. It says he's going to be away on
I'm sorry.
holidays.
Unless you guys want to send me.
And I won't be available either, just not able to take additional time off, so it'd have to be someone else if they're able to go or want to go.
They need a name apparently by September 30th, according to the letter.
Oh, that's late.
Wait.
Right,
They need a letter or a name right away.
to register.
When is that?
It's November.
Right after the,
It's right after Remembrance Day.
Weekend.
November 12th is the day after Remembrance Day, which is.
The Monday. Remembrance Day.
So you leave on
I
the
fly
Monday.
in Tuesday morning.
You're going to be in Edmonton? So do you want to stay?
Well, this way you don't have to go through the
Somebody else,
withdrawal.
unless somebody else absolutely wants to go.
I
Is
can,
is it conflicting with any other, like, we're sending people to different conferences. Is it conflicting with any of the other dates?
I don't think so, really. Nothing that I know about. No, I'm sure that, like, but you're going to be in the city, so
I'm gonna be in the city.
yeah, if you want to go.
I'll be flying back in from Dallas.
Okay. And if something doesn't work out, you can probably just let Nancy know,
Well,
because
I might be-
they can do a name change
I'll be there
probably
that night,
afterwards.
Tuesday nights.
Yeah, if you're going to be there, then that's handy.
Don't matter.
Everybody okay with that?
Unless somebody else wants to physically go.
definitely not me.
I would like to go, but I just can't. But honestly, I think that's a good gesture for someone like us to.
No, they're
come
great. I
go.
went one time, a few years back, I went to one of the RMAs, and it's a really good opportunity to sort of
Not as
connect
big
with the
as
county and
AUB, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're coming to ours, I think it would be a good gesture. I'd really like to go, but I just.
I can represent.
okay, sounds good. I'll
Would you want
They might put, I
to,
can put Arlen's name in there, the council sent Arlen Courtly, Councillor Courtly.
okay, all those in favor? Carried. Going to CAO's report and action list.
Worst case scenario,
Well, there.
I can,
I'll be your alternative.
Okay.
I thought you couldn't go.
Oh, never has we.
Okay. Yeah, well, just, yeah, let her know, because I'm sure somebody else would go.
Okay. Get a motion on this?
Sure, I'll go.
Okay, Councillor Stenhouse.
The council received the CAO Brian Martinson's report and action list for information.
Okay. Anything you want to add to it?
I do. I just want to let council know that on our 2 trailers that we have received through tax arrears,
We're the proud owners of?
yes, we contacted Sheila Phelps, who was here regarding the trailers and moving them into the Eastview Trailer Park. We had them come and have a look at them. Unfortunately, the date of the trailers is older than 1985 by a couple of years, and so they would not purchase them. I said they could purchase them, move them to another municipality, but they didn't want to do that either. So what, they were in town on just the other day, and she had one of her contractors go and have a look at them. So what he suggested is they're not in that bad a shape to be fixed up. So I asked them for a price on both of them to fix them up individually and how much that would be. And then if that happened, if we got them functional, then maybe we could sell them as a living.
Yeah.
Or could we sell them to Eastview?
So that's kind of my intention. So they have a contractor in Slave Lake that they use, she said, so I'll wait till we get back some numbers and I'll bring it back to council and we'll go from there. So that's the next option. He said basically to hire somebody to haul them out, you're going to be looking at quite a bit of money, he said, for each unit. So, and then if somebody only wanted them, so we offered them free and nobody wanted them, so.
Just be very careful, because I was looking into that. People can't get insurance after a certain year, so we need to look into that if they can't insure it. And what about the scrap metal yard out of Peace River? Would they be interested in purchasing it?
I don't know.
Or taking them off our hands?
I have no idea.
I think we'd have to take it over there first.
Are they
Oh.
blocked or on wheels?
They will.
I think they're blocked. I'll get a price from this guy first and we'll go from there and see what's happening, so.
All right, anything else?
Nope, just a number of meetings that I've attended and it's getting to be a bit crazy here now. We're going into more meetings, so it's that time of year again, so.
Councillor Gilroy.
Can we actually, I noticed, I have no problem with the RCMP open house, but do we have, say, we had a big kerfuffle when the UCP had their nomination committee here, their contest here, and we were deciding what can and cannot be in this chamber. Do we have a policy? I think we need a policy because there was a big concern about this, and I think we need to define who should be able to use this facility or not. Otherwise, what happens is someone can say, "Well, how come they're allowed to use it and we're not?" I think we need to define how this chamber is used.
Unofficially, in the past, what was the situation is that it was only allowed to be used by committees that councillors sat on as their jobs as councillors. So, for example, if somebody from the council here sat on the chamber would be allowed to rent or use the facility. If the Ski Hill had a committee meeting, but nobody from council sat on that committee, then they would not be allowed to use it. And that was kind of like the criteria that was used in the past. And of course, it was not for businesses. It was just unless they wanted to pay. But I'm talking about for people that were doing it for free. It was only allowed for nonprofits, for committees, for stuff like that that had to do with business of the town. That has changed over the years. I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure why some of these organizations are getting it for free. They should be charged because they're being charged everywhere else they go in town, so why are we not charging? And then, of course, there's some places that they don't allow anybody to use it because it's council, and to a sign of respect that it's only council that uses it. So it depends on what this council wants.
Okay, well, that's just an idea, and I think we should have a policy on it so everybody's clear, right? It's just makes it straightforward, but get it dealt with so we're all clear and know what it is.
So are you saying send it to the bylaw committee?
I think it would be a good thing for the bylaw committee to deal with.
I do too.
I think we need a listing of what bylaws, or not necessarily but policies and bylaws that we do have. Because we have a listing of all of the bylaws now, but we need a listing of the policies so we can find things. And I know that's another big project, but that should be a goal of the committee, in my opinion, is to get through that.
I thought Marion was already working with the committee on that. Yeah.
There's one in our box.
You guys have just started on the policy, so basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, have you got a listing of all of them now?
Of the bylaws.
No,
Not of
we-
the policies.
No, we had the bylaws done 2 years ago.
Oh, but we've gone through a lot. You guys know some stuff.
No, we went through all of the bylaws at that time. And then there was an intent to take that committee and then review each of those bylaws every 5 years. And I think that's where the committee has, the intent is to make sure we review every bylaw within 5 years, or 5 or 6 years. So there was a need to get through, when we looked at like 130, you had to get through so many a month. And I haven't seen those coming through, so that we're constantly making sure that they're updated. Plus, we need to make sure we're, getting up to date on the policies. Because at the time, 2 years ago, we didn't really have a listing of the policies that were out there, and it was kind of hit and miss.
Well, for the bylaws.
A lot of bylaws.
For the bylaws, I'm sure that she wouldn't mind giving you the same copy we received as bylaw people, if you want to keep
No,
on.
I
on
had
the
that
stuff.
one 2 years ago. We went through it, because we went through bylaws that were from 1960.
The oldest one here is 85.
Yeah, and we deleted tons. We got through them all, and I think there's like 130 left. But we've never really got on to what are our policies and looked at any of those. But even those 130, there was supposed to be a schedule on how we're going to review each one of those in a review schedule.
They do have a review schedule on it.
Oh, okay.
Meaning the year review and
Okay,
stuff like that.
and it's being kept up.
Yeah, this is a brand new one.
Good. Yeah.
Just to let everybody know about the policies, something that Municipal Affairs recommended a while back, and I know that Marion has been working on it already. Maybe that's why you guys haven't had as many of them come to you yet. Some policies are administration only. Some policies are council only, and she's been trying to sort out between the two binders to figure out which ones go to council, which ones don't. And I know she's been working on that, so that is a time-consuming job. And some of these policies have to be split in half. Because, like the personnel policy, some of it applies to council. Council has to make those decisions, not staff. And some of them, it's under the jurisdiction of the CAO. So sometimes there's a lot of stuff that has to be done. And what Municipal Affairs has recommended in the past, and it came up again on Thursday when I was in Grand Prairie, is that there's two binders. One binder that's council, needs to go through, council makes the decisions, and the other one is administration. And so I know Marion's working on that, so that is a very time-consuming job too.
Yeah. Oh, no, I know. It's just, yeah.
I just think
But
the
we need a
council should
listing
decide
of sort of
who
what those
uses this.
policies are so we can find them, right? And council should be able to access those policies to know what they are too, and it should be online where we can click on it, get it, or whatever. Or,
Once it's all done, that's the intent.
yeah, and same with bylaws, so we can look them up if we need to. So, going back to your report,
The blanket exercise is on tomorrow. If any of the council wants to take part at the Friendship Center from 12 to
On the Eagle's
3:30.
Nest.
Yeah, no, it's at the Friendship Center.
Really?
Yeah.
And
I thought it was.
Sorry, it's at the Friendship Center, the blanket exercise tomorrow. But that's at the same time that Northern Lakes College is basically doing
Eagle's
this.
Nest Cultural Center.
yeah, it's at the Eagle's Nest. You call the Friendship Center to register.
Or you get a
Okay.
ride from the Friendship Center. Otherwise, you can drive out there.
Okay? Anything else? Councilor Rose?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, Brian, on how you guys made out with the removal of the mold upstairs in the Sports Palace.
company was in and
It's
done,
done?
yep.
Okay. So does it look a lot different?
I haven't been up there actually.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering if they, and they're gonna start replacements on November 15th?
That's the date they gave me.
That seems really late to get, they're working in
They-
the frickin' winter, eh?
They told me that they work all winter around on roofs. They don't stop. And he said basically what they're behind right now is because of the rainy weather. He said they had roofs opened and they had to cover them in and it kept raining and said they just got delayed. So that's why they're to this time now. That's the date. So, but he said there'd be no problem to finish it. He figured a little over a week and they would be in and out.
So they're not obviously putting any kind of shingles on there in any way, it's all tin, right?
It's tin, yeah.
Because shingles, you don't get a warranty anymore
No.
after, because it's getting too cold for them to set. What about what's happening with the paving? Because I noticed they're sort of in town, but that was supposed to have been done already too.
That was supposed to be done by the 15th of this month.
Oh, it was the 15th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And what's the name of the company?
Everall?
Raiders or E-Construction?
Raiders one?
No, Raiders are
Raiders are
doing the concrete first.
Oh, okay.
Actually, when I come to the office tonight, they were still working at 6:15, so I would suspect that they'd be in, for them to pave that is like a day's work.
Yeah.
The both streets, it's the concrete, and what they'll do is they'll pour the concrete, let it set up for a couple days before they pave, so I'm sure they're gonna meet their deadline. I talked to Ruel this morning, actually, to Pete Gervais, and they paved the pop-ins lot here today, so.
Yeah, I saw that there.
So they're around there, they still have work left out at the airport. So I think they're gonna fire the plant up here yet to finish that job. They got the access road, I think, left to do at the airport.
Yeah, we dumped a little oil this morning.
Okay, Councillor Gilroy?
Any update on any of the stalled projects? For example, what's happening? Any news on our gas station over here or the development on the west side with Mohawk?
But
Sorry.
I haven't heard nothing. Marion hasn't. The only thing that she told me is Tim Hortons are actually looking at alternative site to put the Tim Hortons building up.
An alternative site?
Yes.
What?
The guy that has a franchise, I guess, can't work with the guy that owns the land because of the land, the requirements of the 5-foot thick pad that they're requiring him to build to put the building on, so.
Alternative
There.
site meaning what? In our town or out of our town?
In our town.
Okay.
Okay. Just,
So-
I'm just thinking, well, you know what, there's a wonderful thing, and that might be a great option for him, is the old dairy site there, right? Is that a potential?
That building's coming down tomorrow.
It's coming down tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
yeah, that's what I'd heard, so.
And that's
That'll
what
be-
the Box Springs Station side.
The owners own the 2 lots, there's 2 other lots there that they own also,
Yeah, so
So
that would be
they-
a good
they-
spot.
and they're motivated to sell, so. The company knows that.
The company, no, okay,
Yes.
so they could look at that or any of the
Yes.
other ones in and around town. Excellent.
Wonder if it's at the S.
That's awesome, but what's the implications on traffic counts and the traffic turnoff and
Yeah.
stuff like that? With the lanes and all the, and
Yeah.
if that goes ahead, can we boost us back up to 80K over here?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, they'll have to, that's something that'll be down the road. The
Right.
part there is that there's access off of
Yep.
52nd Avenue off the back, so,
There is, yeah.
or an exit, so.
Yep.
You could have an entrance only one way off the main street and exit out that way. So,
But,
Put lights in.
but that's a long ways off too, so.
Few lights at that intersection.
Just might have to, yeah. Okay.
There with the Oilers winning the Stanley Cup again.
Okay, any other questions for Brian? All right, we have a motion to receive for information. All those in favor? Carried. Going to, next item is the treasurer's report. Go ahead.
The council received the September 2019 Treasurer's Report as presented for information. And I will start with questions. Is that good?
Absolutely.
That's aggressive.
Okay.
That's aggressive, but yeah, we'll go for it.
So my first concern is under your number 1 August GST filed. Are we being very cautious so as what happened with the town of Peace River with their GST issue? Are we being very cautious about that and following what is required and so that we don't get a big surprise?
It was a surprise to all municipalities in the province when that came up with Peace River. Nobody knew about that particular rule because as far as we're concerned, it's exercise in futility because municipalities don't pay GST. So I'm going to charge you GST and then you're going to get it back from the government. So it's going around and there's paperwork 3 times instead of no paperwork. And so we can't figure out why the GST department wants it to be recognized in the first place and documented and all that paperwork and all that rigmarole. And so all municipalities will have to review their stuff if this does not go through the appeal and get rescinded.
Yes, I've been told that we don't pay GST.
Correct.
And yeah, like I said, Peace River got a big surprise. So are you actually looking into this and making sure that we don't get a surprise?
No, nobody in the province right now in my position is doing anything specific. We are paying attention to what is happening with Peace River's case, and once that comes and either passes or goes through appeal or whatever the case may be, then we will take action. We're not going to go through all the work involved if we don't have to.
Okay. And I know you brought this up before, but number 3 on assessment and property taxes, the DIP regarding their huge error.
Yippers.
Can you enlighten me on that?
This year's error? Somehow or another, the tax agent for one particular large designated industrial property in town gave the wrong information to the provincial assessor. The provincial assessor didn't question it or look at it in detail, and they increased the assessment by an additional $23 million, more than they should have, because they repeated 2017's increase in 2018, and they shouldn't have. So when they sent us all the numbers, we had to use their numbers to what we had to charge out to the people, and we wound up with a significant larger amount than what we had expected. I personally had asked them in the spring, are you sure this is right? Are you sure this is right? Repeatedly, because I did not believe the numbers were correct. And they assured me that they were correct. And I figured, okay, fine, but some niggling part in my back of my mind would not believe it. And so when I did the tax levy bylaw, I did it with the previous rates of that particular dip property. I shouldn't have probably, but I figured I'd rather be safe than sorry, and if we had extra, great, we had extra, but I didn't want to be shorthanded. As it turns out, unfortunately, I was correct, and their error cost us $403,000. But because of me having put a different amount on the tax levy bylaw, and we're only going to be short about $80,000 in revenue compared to the 403.
So,
Are we getting new assessors?
This is not our assessor. This is the provincial assessor for the designated industrial property, the Assessment Services Department of the provincial government. They are the ones that have made a mistake 3 years in a row. Sorry, they missed 1 year. They made a mistake in 2015. They were okay in 2016. 2017, they made a mistake. 2018, they made a mistake. There was 3 out of the 4 years.
Who are you gonna call?
What would have happened if she would have put in the original numbers?
I technically should have.
No.
Yeah, I'm getting a
Then
little
we can go to
worried
less
about
conferences.
Debbie, because she just said she had to go to the washroom, but she's still not back yet. Does somebody want to check on her? We'll take a little break, or, no? But we should,
Oh,
I
yeah,
just,
you're the one concerned.
yeah, she's been gone a long time for just having to go and do a washroom break. I'm just a
Oh, she's
little
coming.
worried.
It's not
I
like
heard
she's
the
a
door.
smoker.
Oh, there she is. Oh, okay.
We're sending a search committee for you.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
just coming to find you. 'Cause
I was gonna go, but they wouldn't let me.
Yeah.
That's because you'd never come back.
That's right. I'm out of here.
Okay, any other questions for our treasurer?
Actually,
Okay.
I
Just want to make a comment that I know we messed up yesterday with the library one, but I really appreciate the leadership of our treasurer and the flexibility of our entire group for meeting today at 8:30 to get the library one out of the way.
So much fun.
As I said, it was really good that we were able to get it done. So I appreciate that.
The only thing I'll add to this is if you notice number 4, the presentations for those things as per the old request in council's action list are happening.
Wednesday.
One is tomorrow, one is Thursday, and one is the 22nd. And all 3 different presentations are being made to all employees. And so your next council meeting, I should have some response, at least to the pension part of it. And then after the meeting after that, I'll have a response to the benefits portion of it.
Do you actually use?
Why don't you bring them together? Oh, I don't know. Okay. Anyways, we'll leave that, go.
Sorry.
Quick question, because you have AMSC on here. One of the things we saw at AUMA again is that they give back to their members. Remember all the money back. Do we actually use them at all? AMSC?
All the time. What happens is that they have a list of preferred suppliers. So, example, there's maybe 3-4 different stationery companies in the province, and one of them will be their preferred one. We deal with them. We get a huge discount because all the municipalities are using that particular supplier, so we get a huge group discount. And so we also get a rebate check if there's so much savings at the end of the year. We do get a check at the end of every year.
Okay. That's just what I was looking at because they had said how much money they gave back last year.
Yeah, we get a rebate check every year.
Good.
Okay, any other ones? So we're done. All those in favor of receiving for information? Carried. Strategic planning meeting? Get a motion on that one? No. Councillor Rose?
The council called a special meeting on Thursday, October 17th to review the strategic plan.
Go ahead.
I just threw that date out there, but I didn't know if all the council could make that date, but if you can, that'd be great. But if not, if we can work with another date, that's also.
Does Christy Tallman work for the town now?
No. She has not worked here since 2012.
I keep on getting requests from her for meetings. The strategic planning was what just came back to mind, is that she sent one and then a decline, but it said from Christy Thomas for it's you, is it?
Some of the emails are still messed up, and that is coming from Marion. I don't know why. Yeah, I know mine, when I get certain ones, they come in different names too.
I will check into that.
That's probably an IT thing. I'll check into that.
What time is it gonna be? Because we have a rec board meeting on the 17th.
And don't forget you have a planning on, we have one on the 15th.
It'll be evening.
That's an organizational,
Yeah.
but the mayor is not here on the 15th.
Yeah, I'm not here on the 15th or the 17th.
And
Just-
I can't make the 17th either. I have watershed.
So you're not
So-
here on the 15th for organizational?
No.
Is that tentative too, or is that? for sure. I've heard that.
No.
We advertised that one already.
Yeah.
That was
So the 17th is,
Yeah, Tuesday.
is potential for strategic planning, but you're not here, so we probably shouldn't do it then.
I don't know.
Okay. So what's another date then?
First week in November. Brian, are you gone all week?
No, Brian doesn't leave till the 12th.
She's looking very carefully on you here. She's gonna check, make sure you work it.
7th, I think.
The 7th?
But,
Can we do it the first week in November? Are you back, Brian?
What's wrong with the 29th? That's a Tuesday.
I'm looking for a budget meeting on it.
Oh.
Or it depends on how the,
Oh yeah, the 29th.
What about the 24th of the Thursday night?
what about our budget deliberations?
Well, that's what he's talking about, the 29th.
that's why I'll bring that back. I'll see how the budget goes, like, if recreation budget's presented to the rec committee. I know the library's done already, and the fire,
We're scheduling, hopefully, for Tuesday, and sending you out tomorrow.
Is the museum
So we
done?
missed, just going when we're talking about budgets, the first step, according to our new policy that we did, was for council to sort of set a direction. That was step one, and that's what we were supposed to do.
In September.
Yeah, and we tried to get some of that discussions, and it got pushed over and pushed over. So now, like, we're not following our policy again.
So I decided not to wait, and I decided to get the budget done anyways. So I've got 90% of it done already, so that the council has a certain direction. I just have to tweak some numbers, but the majority of the budget is already.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you gotta go ahead, but we haven't said, whether we want a 5% cut or whether we would go with a slight increase or what. So you're building it, and then we might have to make you redo it, which isn't an efficient way of doing anything, right?
But I couldn't wait.
So we need to, there's a problem when we can't follow our own policies here, like, where was we needed to meet on that.
So why can't do we really need to do a strategic planning meeting? I know we do, but doesn't the budget take precedence over this?
Well, it ties into the budget, right?
Yeah.
It's part and parcel of your budget.
Okay, so are we gonna use the 29th for anything at all? Mr. Sago?
that's when I had basically
Budget.
the budget.
So do you want us to set that date aside?
Well, why don't we do the strategic plan on it?
What about the 24th?
If we go to recreation conference, it's the.
Oh, that's when okay. Okay, I didn't know that.
Part of it, how that works.
Okay, I just didn't know that. So yeah, well, we need to start scheduling in some meetings, and things are getting tight, so it's gonna be, yeah.
So that, for myself, it would work the last week of October.
Yeah, the 29th works for
29th
me.
would work for me.
First week in November is fine. So
What would happen if we,
those are 2 weeks,
could
and I'm
we
sure
pivot
Brian
back
has
it?
like a few days left that we're not booked up, right?
Brian, could we piggyback it? Like, for example, if we don't have everything ready for the budget, can we just move to strategic? Like, so that we take that day for one of the two, at least?
You have to advertise what
For strategic
meetings,
plan, yeah.
what your special meeting's gonna be about.
Okay.
So you can do the one thing, you don't have a budget meeting advertised yet?
Not yet, no.
And you don't
I
have
was,
strategic
I was
plan?
gonna make sure that the budgets were presented to all, like, to recreation that prior, and to the budget review committee for recreation, and then bring it back to,
So
I was hoping to have that done by the 29th, so we could present you guys with the budget on the 29th.
How about if we set aside that date and you tell us a little closer to it so we don't book it in?
Can we do the 29th for strategic planning, and then later that week do the budget? Like, keep, when it's fresh?
What about November 5th? Is that another date that's?
October 31st?
I like that
Oh,
date. I
I
don't
like
like to be
that
home that day.
Halloween.
I don't want to be home that day either, so.
And 500 people knocking on my door.
Yeah.
All with masks on.
So the 17th evening doesn't work for anybody?
There's 2 that can't make it on the
And you
17th.
don't know about Michael, and you don't know about Donna, so. if worst came to worst, I probably could
21st evening.
say no to the watershed. If worst came to worst, and just come here. and stay.
Watershed's in the afternoon now.
No.
No?
It's usually evening,
Well, now they're trying to move it a little bit to 4:30, but it still goes to 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then you drive back.
What about the 21st, a Monday night?
Saturday or at least. What about you, Arnold? Are you around?
I think it should be.
We got our council meeting on the 22nd, but
For that?
I'll make myself available for the 21st if you want.
Whatever.
when do you guys go, when's the recreation conference?
23rd, 22nd, 23rd, 24th.
Okay, so that's the last day is the 21st then, eh?
Or the 22nd, I can't remember for sure, but that doesn't work anyway because that's council. For an evening meeting for strategic planning, you can't.
Yeah,
piggyback that
yeah,
on
you
that.
can't do it on that day, no,
So the 21st is an option for.
for strategic planning.
28th and
29th is a
29th?
no-go.
How about the 28th and 29th, 2 days in a row?
How about on 29th?
28th, 29th would be good. Strategic, the 1 day, and then.
Okay, so what we've got right now is October 21st for strategic planning and October 29th for budget. Does that work for everyone?
21st and 29th.
21st and 29th?
Elections, that's the
21st.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but that
Was
only
it the
takes
23rd?
2
Okay.
minutes to go in and vote,
Because the
right?
budget's the 23rd, right?
Vote before you come to the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay. I agree, I think we should come to that.
Yeah, because the election is at the Legion this year, by this time.
And we have a TV with the results going on in here, just so you know.
I don't know if we have a TV
Yeah.
ever in the building.
By the time we
okay, are we good with those dates? Everybody's okay with those dates?
Really, the 21st? Really?
Why don't you like it? Oh, because you want.
Election day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry about
Either
it.
gonna
Yeah.
drink
By the-
hard
by
or
the
drink
time-
hard.
Hey, by the time we start, the government will already be in place.
Exactly.
No
Well, either
offense.
drink hard or drink harder. I'm not sure what I do.
Okay, so we have a motion that we set the meeting for strategic planning on October 17th. That's,
21st.
do we want to do a friendly amendment to that?
Should make both motions then, if that's,
Oh,
we can
okay.
advertise them. Both.
Okay, we'll make two separate
Okay,
motions
okay.
then. So who made the motions for the,
Councilor Rose.
okay, are you up for an amendment to the 21st?
Do you want me to amend my own motion, or do you want to?
Yeah.
So make an amendment to the motion to have the strategic, doesn't say, it says special, oh yeah, for strategic planning meeting for the 21st of October at 7 PM, do you know what times in there?
Yeah. Okay.
And to have a special meeting for budget.
Well, we'll do that as a separate motion.
Oh, I thought he wanted to.
Yeah, we'll do separate motion. Okay, everybody all right? All those in favor of the meeting on the 21st? Carried. Are opposed? All right, we know he wants to watch the election.
Maybe we should have it early and like have supper and have the TV and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good idea.
Can we have another motion for budget? You needed another motion, right, Brian?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that council call a special meeting on
October 20th.
October 21st,
29th.
29th, sorry, to review the budget.
The 2020 budget, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just put the 2020 in there.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried.
That one's at 7.
Well, it's 7, yeah.
Is the October 21st meeting, is that at 7 or is that at 6 o'clock meeting?
7.
7.
Get out of buying supper again, eh?
That's what Councilor Rose made that motion. So,
Well, we will save that money if we don't put all that money back into, into the scholarships.
The other one was at 29.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. We got written and verbal reports. Well, there's no Councillor Daneka. Councillor Gilroy.
I'll make this quick and you can time me. Meeting with the Minister of Seniors and Housing, Leicester Slave Lake Watershed, UPC AGM to talk to Pat Wren and candidate Arnold Pearson, AUMA, 2 library budget meetings, the Aboriginal Interagency meeting. Candidates meeting is going to be on Thursday at 7 at the Gordon Buchanan Center. Keepers of the Athabasca. Remember they came here a few months ago and said there were going to be 2 times every 2 items. Like they'd have 2 times to do these things. They're only doing it once now. They cut it back to just 1, and it was already advertised there for the blanket exercise. Round dance on the 16th, and the chamber is still working out some details for their event on the 26th. Hopefully I'll be able to email you guys on that. As well, one other thing, reminder of the free lunch and workshop for Conflict Resolution Day at the Provincial Building. So, October 17th, very popular date. So there's that as well if you guys want to see that. And if you want to know anything about the First Nation Health Consortium, I've got brochures on that as well. So, I move my report for information.
Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried.
Did you time it? Oh, I got to restart then. Okay.
Okay, we're moving on to me. Same thing, just a quick listing. A lot of these, everybody was involved in. Solicitor General meeting in Slave Lake, capping and pinning for the college in Slave Lake, the convocation, Seniors and Housing Minister meeting, had a Heart River Housing meeting, AUMA, and then today was ICF meeting. So we'll be coming back with, I guess the most important things is some more discussions on ICF before we can wrap that up. Just to really highlight it at a high level. I move my report for information. Seeing no questions, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Courtley?
Ditto. Well, we were all meeting a couple meetings today.
Recreation.
Joint recreation, yeah, and then ICF, and then of course today. So it's been a full day.
Yeah.
Full day. You said it all, basically. I move my verbal banter for information.
All those in favor? Carried. Councillor Rose?
I'll move my written report for information.
Okay. Oh, I was wondering if you came out of the Joint Use Committee with any new formula or anything like that. Like, I know you already said in your report that you were going to review some of that.
That was today. We reviewed it today, and we didn't come up with any conclusions, except for that maybe we have to relook at the potentially the formula for some equity in how things are calculated. And I think what was basically decided is we're going to call a meeting with the school divisions and bat around a few different ideas at that point. So we really don't have much to report until that point.
Okay. Any other questions for it? All those in favor of receiving it for information? Good. And last, but definitely not least, Councillor Stenhouse.
All right, so
Caramelized banana cake
I
Put the timer on, please.
actually, because I have a lot to say tonight. I had an FCSS meeting on September the 16th. I had a subdivision development appeal board on September the 17th. AUMA from the 25th to the 27th. I had my own agenda going into AUMA. There was a couple things that I wanted to deal with. And one of them was our disaster service committee that we're all on. I am looking into that and getting more information on it, because we really need to look at that, and that was one of the training sessions I took. I want to move back into September 16th at our FCSS meeting. I was very disappointed at that meeting. This is the first meeting that probably my emotions took over my mind. I couldn't focus on the meeting, all because of a couple issues that FCSS, keep in mind FCSS is a very important organization in our community, and they struggled with our fire chief for our emergency or joint emergency response plan, which is dictated by the province. And we also had some miscommunication on our evacuation center. The evacuation center is actually called on by the province. It's activated and deactivated by the province. And High Prairie was a designated reception center. And I really have concerns about previous reports of hotels and service providers not being paid. After that discussion, like I said, I was totally boggled from the rest of the meeting, because we really need to get, this is a very important issue, and need to get this resolved. I will give you more report on my AUMA and my disaster service committee. But for now, I move my report for information. Any questions?
Next one, beside you.
I just want to add a little bit in regards to the FCSS report about the evacuation and all that stuff. They were dealing with a totally different department than I had to deal with finance. I've got all the emails from the province of Alberta showing that they were not paying for it, and they did not consider us an evacuation center. So the two people in Edmonton were the ones that had different information, that were giving different information to the FCSS director and to myself. So it did not come from me, it came from the province, and I don't know why they had two different people at Edmonton that were not even communicating with each other, because they were different departments. But I have all the emails. If anybody wants to see all the emails, I can show them to you. I can forward them to you, no problem. But it came from the Edmonton offices. That's what they told me. And all the hotels were paid, but it did take a few months because we didn't know that we were going to get paid. And what the province had told us originally was to send it to all those different municipalities of where the people were staying at. And we invoiced all those communities, like we were told to do. But I have all those backup documentation to show that I did what I was told. And so I'm surprised that...
There's two things on that, because I was at that meeting with Judy, and I did report on that. One, we made a motion to allow the spending of dollars for the use of hotels in the community, right? That we had agreed that we were going to do that. I mean, I know I wasn't at that council meeting, but I remember that was when I called in and we had talked to Tyler, and he had said what they were doing in Slave Lake, and that if we weren't going to do it, that Slave Lake would allocate the funds and that they would pay for it. And so we had made that motion. I don't think, like, I don't know that it's that fair to hold hostage our hotels and our service industry here, because we didn't know if we were going to get paid. I think that, like, we made that decision that we were gonna honor that, or that we were going to pay those, or that we, I guess, however, I'm fumbling with words, but basically we said we would handle the evacuees, and we would give them we would deal with the financial end of that. I don't know that it was that fair to put it on the hotels and to let them wait for that long, as well as the county did announce to us in that meeting that they didn't get paid either. And we were told by yourself, and I get, Terry, that the government obviously didn't know what they were dealing with and what they were talking about. and they did mess up as far as the communication. But we also were told by the FCSS director that she had attempted communication with finance here at the town, and she didn't receive any back. I know you were away for part of it, so that's probably part of the challenge. But I wish that we could communicate better. Like in the end, she said that nobody ever really got back to her about any of the issues with the finance. She didn't know until we brought up what you had told us.
I
She
sent
didn't even know
emails.
that was never shared with her.
I sent emails every couple days. Maybe I wasn't sending it to the right person at FCSS, but I sent emails and kept her in the loop every step of the way.
She got nothing. She said that she never received anything and that she had reached out and made a couple phone calls. And she found out you were away. She left a message and that nobody had ever come.
Okay, maybe I've got the wrong name or the wrong email
So maybe,
because
maybe it was just all
Yep.
lack of communication. So, but I mean, in future, it would be nice to see that there's a better.
But the other issue is that council, I'm sorry to say, does not have, I don't think they have the right to say that they're going to pay for all these expenses on the taxpayers' dollars in this town when it's not something that's the taxpayers in this town's responsibility, and we're supposed to go through the province. That's what that's my understanding of how it's supposed to work.
Councillor Gilroy?
Two very quick things. One, the only reason we voted to release that funds is because the FCSS director was here and it was a pressure situation, and otherwise we probably would have thought it out a bit better. But secondly, I think Councillor Stenhouse has a really good idea. We need to get some representatives from the county, from the town, fire department, FCSS together, review this thing and get something down, because this is happening on an annual basis, and we can't continually waste not only the confidence of this community upon us, but also waste a lot of time and effort hunting down things and duplicating work, because it's a waste of time. We need to, I think within the next year, to be honest, we need to have some sort of committee that's actually going to review this and get something down where everybody's on the same page. And I hate sounding mean, but we really do need to get this done so that we're not going through this exercise again.
The province had set up a meeting with all the parties to give us proper training, and we were all looking forward to it. And then they canceled on us about a week or two before the date was supposed to happen, and they haven't rescheduled. So I'm not sure what's happening, if they're ever going to do anything or not. But we were very disappointed because they had people from the county, they had people from the town and FCSS, and we were all going to go to this training meeting so that we would all know the proper steps. But the province canceled the training.
So who's following up on this training and to make sure it gets done?
The province is the one that said that they were going to do the training, and then they're the ones that backed out. I'm not sure if they're waiting for the budget to come out or what it is, but they've left me in limbo at the present time.
But I guess my question is who's driving to make sure that this gets accomplished, right? Is it the town? Is it the county? Is it FCSS? Because it sounds like everybody's sort of waiting for somebody else to do it. Like you're saying, well, I'm waiting for the province. What's the county doing? What's FCSS doing? Who's sort of spearheading this to make sure it gets done and follows up with the province? Because if you're not following up with them, they probably won't do it. Go ahead.
That's where this committee, this disaster service committee that we're all on, we need to get together. We need to get this sorted out, and with FCSS, we need a protocol of how this is going to work. We can't wait on the government. Another disaster or something could happen at any time. We need to get on this. I'm making it my mission.
Councillor Rose?
One more comment on, and this is just from being on FCSS for a couple of years. I was on it when Louise Myers was the director, and she shared with us that after the first fire in Slave Lake, that they try to, so each independently, the town and the county have their own disaster service plan, but they don't have a joint plan. And FCSS, where they're called, and the steps and the process as to, it ends up usually being the town unless something happens within the town, and then we're in the county, right? So we end up taking the lead. It's always going to be our facilities, right? It's going to be schools, and it's going to be like with fire, flood, whatever the emergent situation is, it's going to be, we're going to have to sort of take the lead on it. But FCSS is the reception center, right? And we don't have a process in place. So Louise said that she tried to drive it with the fire chief, and then it was the CAO at the time. I don't believe it was you, Brian. So it was probably maybe Kelly did it. Like, yeah, I can't remember where, like who was the CAO.
When the first fire happened, it was Chris Parker.
Okay. So the ball got dropped. It got dropped. She said she picked it up one time on the CAO's desk, and she actually said she physically brought it over to the fire chief because that was the next place it needed to be, and it never got returned from there. So she says, like it just never got supported by the town, and we basically dropped the ball on trying to get the plan back to them because that joint part. So now maybe we, maybe this shows us again that we're missing that piece of how to jointly deal with finance, right? So like how does the director from Big Lakes County, the FCSS, pay for and have authorization to get things paid for, right? Because there's a lot of expenses that are, so even that piece of it, we saw how that broke down, right?
You don't give the evacuees that option. You tell them, here's a blanket, go lay in the corner and read it.
Or you do that, but whatever you do, whatever your plan is, you have fun.
What Province told me when I was speaking to them after the fact and I was trying to get some money, they said that normally what happens is that they only stay in a hotel emergency for a day or two, 3 days max, until there's a center open available for them. Now, if they choose not to go to that center and stay in the hotel, then it's their dime that pays for the rest of the time. So after 2-3 days in the hotel.
Well, and I think that's different information that I got from Slave Lake. So, I think it'd be really interesting to sort of figure it out for sure. Yeah.
And his first name, I believe, is Rick. I don't remember his last name.
But let's
Yeah,
just,
so for sure.
I think the question is how do we get that committee going? And I think we can count on our CAO because I mean, it's an administrative job. It's not a job of council to do that, right?
Is this part of the ICF? It's a joint thing. Can it be part of our ICF agreement? If not, there's some
There's
really
no real
good-
dollars attached to it, right?
They looked at and I believe they still are looking at a joint emergency plan,
Yeah.
but the county and the town.
Well, and it makes sense to do
And
that.
Swan Hills.
But we need to get
There was a really good
on that. And
really good one,
following up
and
with
I
it.
think at AUMA, I'll call it 360, I forget the rest of it, but I think they will also check for government funding to actually facilitate the entire thing. And if they'll go after the grants to do it, I think we should at least look into something like that. So it doesn't cost us anything, but we get something out of it.
Yeah, I think the delay in the payment here for our hotels and that is that our staff, Terry, was directed to invoice High Level or wherever these evacuees come from, Tattle Prairie or wherever. So in a perfect world, she would have invoiced the government directly and approved, and we would have had the funds a lot faster, but it delays going there. Then they gotta check the numbers, the people, how many
And
nights.
then the province changed their mind and said that they were gonna set up a website for us to input all the data. Well, they hadn't created the website yet, so then they had to create the website.
Don't you worry. UPC will straighten it up. NDP's no longer there.
It was UPC.
Hey?
It was UPC.
Okay, so I
Cleaning
think
up the NDP mess.
we can leave, Brian, you can sort of take that one to see if we can get started on that and get that process going, because it does need to get dealt with.
So we need to vote on Councillor Stenhouse's.
Yes.
We're finished with it now, so we can get on to the
Did
confidential
you
stuff.
you moved your report for information?
Information.
All those in favor? Carried. And Councillor Gilroy?
The council moved into closed session as per section 24, Freedom of Information and Protection Act, and in accordance with section 197(2) of the Municipal Government Act.